Boom, Sheliza Jamal. I'm so honored that you're here. It's been a long time since we last connected. I'm sorry that was a delay on my part. I just got caught up with a few things, but we're here, we're reconnecting, and I have to kick this podcast off with a very special guest. So every time a guest joins us in Ideas into Action, we present them with a guest. We present them with a gift. Can you imagine if I just brought another guest over here? Like, welcome. The gift that we have for you, my friend, is a little belated birthday present.
Thank you.
These are little sweet treats from Butter Avenue on Queen.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to have them tonight.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I
Oh my goodness.
that.
Another rotation around the sun.
Yes.
You survived. You made
I
it.
survived. Yes. Everyone thought it was a milestone because I used a Drake line. I said, turn my birthday into a lifestyle. That
Yes.
was my hashtag.
With the most fire Instagram post of
Yep.
all time. I saw it. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, you go, Sheliza.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's going to be different about this year?
This year, I think I'm really working on my confidence. I'm really honing on what I want to do with my life and thinking of 5-year plans and really, like the police horses that have like their blinders on. Mm-hmm. That's me. I'm just really going for a goal right now and really focusing and being productive.
Yeah, there's something about like when the calendar changes, when your age changes, when you get a new number, when there's an increment. I feel like it's permission to just turn a new page and really go forth with that change that you wanted to make. What made you feel like this was the decision to make when you turned as old as you did?
I think it's because my cousin actually told me this. So 2 years ago, when I left to go to school in the States, he said, "This is your thusmo." And I said, "What does that mean?" He said,
Like
"It's your
thus? THUS?
thus, DAS, like 10."
Oh, thus. Okay,
in
Hindi.
yeah.
Yeah.
He said, "This is your
thus
thusmo."
moment,
I said,
yeah.
"What does that mean?" He said, "It's your 10-year." I go, "What do you mean?" He said, our nanima, so our mother's mother,
Yep.
said that everyone has this 10-year lifespan. And so good things are coming for you. Mm-hmm. So it's your time to harness them.
Right.
Get on the ride and take it and go far because this is your 10 years to be as productive as possible because it's your 10-year allotment. So I feel like that's ringing in my mind that this is my year. Every year I want to be more productive, keep working hard and kind of reach my goals and crush them.
I love that. Wow, I'm getting so fired up thinking about this. You've entered into an age. It's not even your year. I think it's your decade. Mm-hmm. It's your 50 years. It's however long you're going to be in the game. Like a window has opened up, and I've witnessed your growth. We've been connected for a few years right now. First on social media, then we connected last year in real life. And just in the year that I've gotten to know you as a person, the path that you've been on you've experienced exponential success here. Way to go.
Thank you.
But you mentioned just a few minutes ago that, confidence is something that you want to work on. When I see you online, you exude confidence, and you're telling me that confidence is something you need to work on.
Yeah, I think I'm really good at exuding the confidence. I think it comes from being a stage performer for a very long time.
And you studied at York, right?
Yes, yeah. So I started performing when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
In Vancouver, on the stage, singing. My first gig was the best Christmas pageant ever. Then I went to a fine arts high school. Did musicals all throughout. Then I went to York for theater, and I've continued doing that theater work. So I think that's where I get the confidence, the outward confidence. But I feel like the inward confidence, and I know I'm sure we're going to be talking more about this, but from colleagues or naysayers or haters, as I like to call them.
Haters.
Yeah, the fake friends.
Yeah.
That also gets me down. So I think that I exude confidence, I project confidence. I know I have my ability, but sometimes it takes a while for me to think about how far I can go. And one of my friends gave me this analogy. I have a great support system. And he said, you're going somewhere. The only thing that's going to distract you is when you let people get in your ear and bring you down, right? And I've noticed that even this year when I'm studying, I think that's the biggest tip I have is really to believe in your confidence because that's what I really want to work on this year is believing in myself because that's what's going to propel me to go even further in my career.
And it's easier said than done, right? Like I feel like I'm not sure. And let's talk about it. Like, were you socialized to be confident? Like, did your parents instill confidence in you growing up? Because I feel like my parents didn't do that for me. I don't think that they were naturally confident. I think they came from a certain background where they believed that you had to keep your head down and just work hard and just be happy to be here. And I think through osmosis, I got that. And then I moved into a world that we're sharing right now where we're speaking for a living, where we're in front of audiences all the time. And I have to muster confidence. I have to like artificially create it. Tell me about your upbringing. Did your parents naturally give you confidence when you were younger?
So I feel as though there is that cultural component. I think out of all 4 of us, I have a sister and 2 parents, I am the most extroverted. And I think that comes from probably my outgoing nature is natural. My mom is like that too. A lot of times I was participating in drama, dance, singing, etc. But we all have this inner lack of confidence.
Interesting.
So I think it's part of cultural norms. You know, I had school counselors saying to me, "Oh, you talk too much. Boys aren't going to like you."
Wow.
I had my mom saying, "You know what? Like, just sometimes simmer down a little bit. You know, talk slowly or softly.
Yeah.
You're too much. You know." Or I had guys say that to me too, be intimidated from me. You know, especially in my community. And so it was, I exuded this huge confidence. Everyone wanted to be around me, and I got that confidence. But there was just some element, and I still don't know exactly where that comes from. There's a lack of confidence. And I think my sister and I share that. I don't know where that comes from, because our parents, maybe because they gave us so much love.
Right.
Like, they always gave us love. They propelled us. They motivated us. You know, I got everything I wanted. My parents never told me I couldn't, you know, study theater, or I couldn't move to Toronto.
They encouraged
They encouraged me, and I think they love who I am, and they love that I'm a chatterbox, you know, things like that. That used to be the word of the day,
Chatterbox.
You know, back like 25 years ago. That was like the term. But I don't know where it comes from.
So it's interesting because like there used to be 3 primary socializing agents. There was your family, and it seems like your family did a great job of encouraging you and boosting your strengths. And then you had friends, and you seem to have like a really active, very tight-knit group of friends that have boosted you up. And then there was school. And it seems like maybe in school and when you were out in the community and when you were at work, that's maybe where some of those external voices came in and made you feel less than. And then kids now are growing up. When I say kids now, it's like I'm not even talking about us over here.
Yeah.
It was definitely us. The 4th socializing agent is the internet.
Yes.
And social media. And oh my goodness, like right before we went on air, we were talking a little bit about like social media and being there and whatnot. And it can be a huge source of driving negative feelings like envy and jealousy and greed, and really impact your sense of self. And so I totally understand why you might have felt less than. How have you overcome that since?
Yeah, I wanted to actually touch base on the school issue. So I think, now that I'm thinking about it, the school piece was tough because I was often the only woman of color, person of color, brown person in my class. I grew up in Coquitlam, BC, so a small city in Vancouver.
West Coast.
And I was always the only brown person in my grade.
Always.
So my sister was in my school, I was in my school. I think there was 5 of us, and we all knew each other. We're all from the same community. We're all Ismaili. We all went to the same mosque that were in my school. So I think that also, I internalized the difference in being different in that way. And also, although my parents boosted me with confidence, I think there was a narrative from my parents and my community that I had to work 10 times harder.
Yes.
And I will say, another piece of confidence was I always wanted to have blonde hair and blue eyes. So I think that did impact me, especially up until, let's say, grade 12.
That's the marketing. That's Disney working on you, man.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I was Jasmine so many times.
Yeah.
I couldn't be, any other character.
Couldn't be Snow White. You couldn't be Cinderella.
Exactly.
Yeah. You had to be Jasmine all the time.
Yeah. But back to your question. So you're asking about social media, and you know what? Sometimes I have to take a break from it because I know that there were times when, people post their best self and their best life. And I have to talk about this. My boyfriend and I have these conversations all the time. He says, Sheliza, think about what you're posting and why you're posting it. And he's like, are you showing it for the world or for you? And we have these conversations, and we quote Chronic's song, do you do it for the love or do you do it for the likes? And sometimes I'm honest with myself and I say, I'm doing it for the likes. Right? I want to promote my business, and I don't want to be ashamed of that, because someone who is white would be out there promoting themselves, no shame. Right? They're doing it for the likes. And sometimes I'm doing it for the love, because I know I've had private messages from people who I've disconnected from, or I went to university with, who have been championing me, or even you and myself. We reconnected over seeing what the kind of work we're doing on social media. So that's a positive side of it.
Absolutely.
But what I really try to do to stay grounded is I try not to go on too much, and I try to tell myself, you know what, people are presenting their best self. Don't get overwhelmed, because it's really tough. It's really tough to think about what people are doing, what they're doing well. But there's always a backstory. I try to remind myself that there's something else going on.
100%. I couldn't say it better than you just did right now. That's actually a very, very apt description of a challenge that many of the listeners now are also experiencing. I know when I've struggled with imposter syndrome, being on social media was the absolute worst thing, because it just exacerbated that feeling. And for the listeners who aren't familiar with this, and we've talked about it in a couple of other episodes, but imposter syndrome is that nagging voice that you have at the back of your mind, in the pit of your stomach, that tells you aren't good enough. And it's so weird to think that, I struggle with that. Is that something that you've gone through and you've experienced as well?
Oh, 100%. And I
Just
think
so bizarre because like
yes.
on the surface, if anyone follows you and all of the listeners over here who are on Instagram, like I would encourage them to follow you.
Yeah.
You look like the paragon of confidence.
Oh,
and to
that's
think
awesome.
to think that you struggle with imposter syndrome, like let's talk about how that happened.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I didn't have a name for it till I went to do a master's degree at Harvard. Interestingly enough.
It took Harvard to get the language for it.
Yes, it took me to get the language. So I was at the person of color student orientation, or the student of color orientation, and we had a whole section about imposter syndrome. And for me, it was always thinking about, I would always sort of play down my successes to bring up other people.
Interesting.
Right? I would always think, maybe I didn't deserve it. So, and it started with actually getting into Harvard. I was so proud of myself. I had wanted to go to this program for 4 years, but I was like, oh, I have my mortgage, I have my friends. What am I going to do? I can't afford it. And I had all these thoughts circling for 4 years. And then I had a crucial moment in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I got in. I only applied to Harvard. I said, if I don't get in, I'm going to start like a side business with special events and whatever. And I didn't tell everybody, but I told some people, close friends. But the reaction I got from people, even close friends, was, why are you going to Harvard? What do you want to do there? Is it going to get you a better job? What's your return on investment? And I was like, all I want you to say is congratulations, or I'm proud of you.
Sounds like a kind of crab in the bucket mentality a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. And then I had people saying, how did you get in? And I had people saying, most people were quite envious.
Understandably. I mean,
and so that started to make me doubt myself. So to be honest, like March 1st, I got the email with the acceptance, and I waited for my parents. We did it on three-way, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't tell people at first. I kept it really private because I was so afraid that if I told people, they would call me the next day and say, sorry, we made a mistake with, the system.
Yeah, you thought you might have jinxed it.
Yeah, I jinxed it, and then, you didn't get in. And I think that happened somewhere. I think in UCLA, Berkeley or something, they sent the wrong letter to the wrong crowd. They sent the admission letters to the rejectees. I remember reading something about that.
Yeah.
So I was super scared. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't until I started classes that I was like, okay, I got in.
That's surreal.
It was a real journey, and I didn't tell people. So people would ask me, oh, what are you doing this? I'm like, oh, I'm going to grad school. Where are you going? Oh, to the States. Well, where? Oh, Massachusetts. Well, where? Boston. They had to ask me 10 questions before I said Harvard. And then I had some conversations with friends, and I did some deep digging.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I have to own this because I'm not going to get the confidence. So then I tried it sometimes, and I'd say Harvard, but I'd get dismissed, especially by white colleagues. So then I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this for their validation. I'm doing it for mine.
Exactly.
So I had to keep practicing it. And it was a practice. And I had a conversation with one of my guy friends, and he said, I need you to practice that. I said, okay. So I tried practicing it. So when people asked me where I was going, if I had the courage, I would say I'm going to Harvard. So that was one way that I went over imposter syndrome. Throughout the year, I think having a group of people who were going through the same experience as me was really helpful. The commonality, we were all students of color. And we were all sort of judged to think, oh, you got a handout, or you got affirmative action got you in, this or that. And so it was really not looking at our merits, but looking at the color of our skin. And so that was really tough, and really thinking about, did we deserve to be here? And it was a pressure cook, right? Pressure pot there, I would always be so worried with my assignments, and then that imposter syndrome would kick in. If I don't get an A on this, they're going to kick me out. Do I belong to Harvard? And even rocking the gear. And now when I rock the gear here, I still don't always get the best positive response, but I'm really trying to own the imposter syndrome and talk about it with, especially with folks of color, to say, you're worth it, you matter. And for me, the imposter syndrome has carried through my job. It's still carrying forward. And that's why I think the confidence piece, because I think I want to work on my confidence so that I can believe that I deserve this as much as anyone else.
Amen.
And that's the tough part.
Wow, my mind was racing as you were narrating that. Wow. Let's start with this. There are some communities out there where not getting into Harvard is seen as the weird thing. You getting into Harvard is the weird thing for our community over here, for the communities that you identify with. Like, I imagine if you're in a community of people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, who have traditionally gone to Harvard, if you don't get in, you're the odd person out. And people are asking you the same questions, just inverted. Yeah. But here you are, you're breaking new ground. You're a pioneer. You're one of the few friends that I have who's gone the distance, who's done this. And I think to myself, wow, if I ever decide to one day apply to Harvard, I'm going to give Sheliza a call.
100%.
And you've done that. And to think that now you're going to invest in owning that narrative, more power to you. But it must be lonely.
Yes, it's definitely lonely. I think it's a double-edged sword, because I think my first degree was in theater. Then I did education, and I got a bit more validity in my community. So South Asian community is very much meritocracy based, right? Which I think I don't necessarily agree with, because of accessibility and oppression and all that kind of stuff. So first degree was in theater, then education, then I did cultural management. But then Harvard was sort of like, oh, okay, so now you're valid in our community. You have a status. So I had to really think, am I going to Harvard for the status or the education? And it's a bit of both. And I'm not ashamed to say that at this point. It took me a while to get there. But I got in, I earned it, and I'm going to rock it. And I'm going to wear my sweater because Absolutely. I earned it and I deserved it. But in the community, it can be lonely because I feel like there's a lot of jealousy. However, the positive things are, two of my girlfriends said, you inspired me to apply for my master's.
Hundo.
One got in, she's in the program this year, not at Harvard, but in Toronto, a healthcare program. And another friend was like, you know what? I'm going to apply. You inspired me. I'm going to come back and do my master's. So that was great. But it's isolating in the sense that sometimes people see you, oh, she thinks she's all that, or she has status, or this and that. But then that's the weeding out process of maturity.
Absolutely.
Where
couldn't agree more.
With all that, you weed out the people who are really riding for you and those who are just hating for you. And so I've learned to keep an even tighter circle.
100%. I think it was Kwok who tweeted this out like a while ago. He said, be mindful of the people who aren't clapping when you're succeeding. Something to that approximation. And like I read that and I thought to myself, I'm like, oh shit. I went back on Instagram and I looked at a couple of posts. I'm like, these posts should have been celebrated by certain people in my life and they didn't celebrate. And I started to notice a pattern. And it got me thinking, I'm like, I've spent so much of my life trying to cater my Instagram for people that I'm not really catering to in the first place. What I've been trying to do and what I should be doing is exactly what you're doing, is those two people who decided to make a transformative decision in their life because you express your truth to the fullest in the most authentic way. You posted for yourself, and in telling your story, you were able to inspire other people. That's who your audience is. It's not the haters. It's not the people who aren't clapping when you're succeeding. I mean, those are the people that will naturally weed themselves off.
Exactly.
I liken them to like little gargoyles on social media. They're like little stone cretins just sitting over there being like, oh, I see this person over there.
Right.
Why did they have this? I'm jealous. Like, hey, I know you're probably going through something. I have empathy for you. Yeah. Hopefully you'll come around. But right now, I just got to be Sheliza Jamal to the maximum.
Yes. But that's why also with social media, like, you have to be careful what you post because people will be jealous. And sometimes they can sense the weakness or try to poke at the weakness or the imposter syndrome you might have.
But should you even worry about that, though?
No, you shouldn't worry about it. But I always think, okay, what's my intention for posting this? What's the feedback I'm getting? Can I deal with this feedback or that feedback?
Right.
And is it going to hurt someone by posting it? Am I showing off? And will someone who's not at a good place in their life be impacted negatively?
So what's that fine line between showing off and like genuinely expressing? Because I think about this all the time with Bailey, my partner, right? She does a great job of telling her story in a way that it straddles a line between showing off and proudly telling the story of what's happening in her life. And I think there's very few times where it comes across as showing off. And because I know her, I know that she's genuinely not showing off. What she's trying to do is she's trying to raise the profile and awareness of her business, and she's trying to tell her story in a way that will beget more business.
Yeah.
But you and I, if we tried to replicate those same tactics that she's able to do so comfortably, we're going to have that moment where the imposter will speak up and be like, hey, Sheliza, hey, Hamza, don't post it. You think you're all that, eh? Like, how do we silence that shit?
Yeah,
how do we silence
tough.
the imposter?
You know what? Okay, so I'll give you one piece of advice that someone gave me. And it was about a job, but I think it can be replicated for anything.
Sure.
And he said, if you see an opportunity, job, whatever, and if you think to yourself, would a white man do this? And if you think a white man would post it, a white man would apply, a white man would take that opportunity and run, then you do it. And I said 100%. So that's what I think about.
What would a white man do?
Yeah. What would a white man do? He would take it and run. And I think it's all about those opportunities. So like back to what you said, good people and not so good people are both watching your online presence. But in this case, for example, we give each other the opportunities, and I want to give other people the opportunities. I've had many people who have reconnected, who have seen what I've been doing. I didn't even know they were looking at my stories or my posts, and then would private message me and say, I have this opportunity for you.
Amazing. That's how it works.
Right. So I think, for me, I want to authentically be myself. That's the key thing, authenticity. I want to be myself. I don't want to show off things, and I think about it before I post. So sometimes I'll have a lull of posting, but I want to show what I'm proud of and I'm proud of my birthday. I'm proud of celebrating. I'm proud of that I look good. I'm going to show that. But I also want to make sure that I'm showing things that are authentic to who I am, right? So like I post about Kaepernick, right? Like that's one of my posts. I'm not going to put that in my story. I want you to see that because that's what I stand for.
Right.
And then if you want to choose to unfollow me, follow me. It doesn't matter to me, but that's what I want to stand for. So it's a mix of, for me, it's a mix of like social justice and real hard knock things. Like I would post something that says racism exists, but I'd also show me hanging out with friends sometimes, right? Because those are all different facets of me, and that's who I authentically am.
I love it. And I think that there's a marketing benefit to this as well, because when you're able to shake off the people that don't want to engage with you in the first place, your engagement rates get boosted because you don't have those fake followers. You don't have the flimsy followers, as I call them, the people who are just lurking, the little gargoyles who are there for some sort of political reason. Maybe they're coworkers. Maybe there's some sort of reason that they're there because they're part of the same association or whatnot. But if they go away, suddenly your engagement boosts. And if you know how Instagram works, listeners, your posts are served to 10% of your audience. And if 10% of your audience actively and fervently engages with your post, then it's served to the remaining 90. So it's in your best interest to have a random sample size of your following engage with your post. And so if the people who aren't clapping for you, who aren't liking you, who aren't retweeting you are gone, fantastic. Go away. You can come back later when you're feeling up. And maybe that's what it is, because I'm sure you've had times in your life, Sheliza, where you fell down, where you were resentful, where you were angry, where you were upset. And I think that maybe carried on into the way that you interact with people. When you saw them winning, maybe you felt a little like, why do they have it and I don't? But here you are, you're winning right now. You're positive, you're a light. And your post said, turn my birthday into a lifestyle. And you owned it and you rocked it. Fantastic.
I'm old,
and if anyone,
but you know, mid-30s, but I'm still like celebrating my birthday, and I think everyone should. That's how I was raised, and I think that we should celebrate life.
We have to celebrate life. We have to celebrate life. And I'm trying to get better at this. Like, I don't think I've done a good enough job with my friends for being there for the big moments in their life. And I think that's just been a product of me being busy and going through my own shit. But when I say busy, I really mean disorganized. Like, my priorities were all over the place. I think in our community, especially for people of color, for people who identify with various intersectionalities that are marginalized, that don't have access to power in the way that, you know, I think straight white men do, I think we have to show up for each other.
100%.
Be at art galas,
100%.
be at movie premieres, retweet articles. Any small wins, throw a like, I see you, keep going in.
Right, and connect people, right? If I have a connection and I can make it, why not make it?
Yes.
You know? Because we have that power, we have that privilege.
Yes.
We have that connection, whether that's privilege of education or a connection. If we have that, give it.
And the grand irony is that we've been socialized, many of us, especially myself, have been socialized to believe that if you give, you lose. We operate from a deficit mindset, but the opposite could not be more true. And I think I keep on getting, I need to remember what this this logic, I think it's a fallacy, I think it is. But when you give more, you get more in return. That's the essence of it. By giving shit away, you get more.
Well, even in like my religion, right, in Islam, we talk about giving. Like, you don't hold on to things. Like, we have, you know, the tithe or the zakat or the son, whatever you want to call it.
13% of your wealth.
Yeah, you give your wealth, right? And whether you can do it or not, but it's just that I've been raised with that mentality just to give. And you reminded me of something, even with the impostor syndrome or the haters. What I've learned is, again, back to that authenticity principle, is like thinking about who I am. I'm kind. I'm going to continue being kind.
Absolutely. That's your brand.
And so, I'm going to kill you with kindness. So I'm going to allow myself to be upset for 2 hours that you were mean to me, or you cut me down, or you shut the door, or you were, you know, vindictive, or whatever it is. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be true to myself, because you can't change who I am. And
Absolutely.
that's the worst stab in the back, right? I'm going to be true to me, and I'm going to be kind to you because that's who I am, and not let you cut me down.
And that sounds like the definition of personal leadership right there, where you take these values and you commit to them and you persist with these values through thick and thin. And I love that kindness and generosity and giving seems to be the essence of Sheliza. You've been giving quite a bit. Like, I see you on the circuit right now, hitting it hard, running all kinds of workshops. Like, I was on your website and I was just impressed by the sheer breadth of things that you offer.
Thank you.
Unconscious bias seems to be at the heart of that.
Yes.
For the listeners who aren't familiar with the concept, what is unconscious bias?
Sure. So unconscious bias, also known as implicit bias, are the beliefs and attitudes and stereotypes that we might have that we're not aware of. So, for example, I might have a bias towards right-handed folks. If I'm right-handed, I might always assume that everyone's right-handed and put a piece of paper on the right-hand side. I might have a bias towards fast drivers, right? I might honk at people who are slow. Those are biases, right? So it's the unconscious or underlying the thoughts, beliefs, and stereotypes that you're unaware of. Now, when we talk about unconscious bias in the equity, diversity, and inclusion space, we're talking about those more detrimental and impactful biases, like I see in education, where we have pathways, for example. So where you tell a student of color to go take a college level course, an applied level course, or to be in a behavior program. Those are unconscious biases that lead to detrimental results. And so there's so many unconscious biases that you can have. Thinking about also something that South Asians and Asians experience, the model minority myth.
The model minority myth,
right?
yeah.
So you know about that.
Absolutely.
So the model minority myth, if folks don't know, is referring to Asian Americans. It started in America, but also Canada, where the belief that Asians are very good at math, that they're successful, that they're the model citizen. And this is actually a marketing strategy that started in the US.
Really?
They put Asians on Life magazine, Time magazine, Maclean's in Canada. And they started a campaign to show, you know what, you should be like Asians.
Wow.
And a lot of it started to pit racial groups against each other. It started back in the potato farmers of the Irish, where they pitted the Irish and the Chinese against each other.
No way, I had no idea.
I was doing a lot of reading about this. And then the model minority myth surfaced after that. But the detriment of model minority myth is, as an educator in the workforce, if you assume that, the person with the Asian name is going to be good at computers, is going to be good at math, is going to be your tech support, then that provides a pressure to that person if they are not good at math or not good at tech. Also, it leads to stereotypes, right? They might be funneled into certain positions and jobs, or they might be tapped on the shoulder at work in those areas. And that is a stereotype that arises from a bias. That's a constant message that you're seeing. And you talked about media. And just a little spiel, like the biases come from our brain, right? So it's not a matter of being guilty, it's a matter of being aware and then changing and rectifying your behavior. But our brain has, two sides. One side is the fast processing, the unconscious, where our brain thinks really, really fast. Instant, yes.
Need to survive.
Fast, efficient, instant. So, for example, I see red light and I'm driving, I stop.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my brain, the schemas that our brain creates. The conscious side is slow, deliberate, thought through.
Yeah, prefrontal cortex shit.
Yeah. And for me, that's the yellow light. I'm thinking, am I going to go? Am I not going to go?
Yeah.
You know that they call it the point of no return in driver's ed?
Mississauga? Let's go, yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Do I see a cop around? Am I going to think about it?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? Or I see a stop sign. So we have the left and the right brain. We have the unconscious and the conscious brain. And we have these schemas that are in our mind that are fast and acting fast because of the messages we're seeing. So you talked about social media before. And this is the issue. For a lot of our millennials especially, they're scrolling through Snapchat, Instagram,
There's repetition.
And they're seeing all these images of what a successful person looks like.
Sure, and they're juxtaposed with more images. 100%. They're chained together, right?
Right. So
one-dimensional definition.
Yes, and that bombardment of media images, the internet, as you were talking, is a very powerful tool, because that's where the stereotypes come and the biases are stewing in your brain, because you're seeing the same image perpetuated over and over and over again. So you start to believe these biases. Oh, if I want to be successful, I must be X. I must look like X. I must do X. If I don't get put into this class, if I don't get this job, if I look like this, I must. All these biases are unconscious and then can become conscious if we take our time and slowly think about them.
Yeah.
And that's where the education piece comes from. And that's why I think unconscious bias is like the most popular topic that I'm asked to speak about.
Yeah, same. It's become like a really hot topic at Skills Camp. We should talk after this.
Yes,
There's a couple of workshops that I think you'd be fantastic for.
Awesome, I'd love to, yeah.
I'm terrified because I read a quote recently from Carl Jung, who said that which is unconscious, if not acted out, becomes the thing that controls your life, and that we then confuse it as fate eventually. And I've been trying to wrap my head around this for a long time. So things that are unconscious, if they're left uncontested, if we don't wrestle with them, they become they become controls in our lives that we then mistake for fate. And I'm starting to think now about our earlier conversation about impostor syndrome and walking around feeling this pressure to perform in a certain way. That's one thing that we have to think about more than the average person. When I say the average person, I'm really talking about straight white male men walking through the world. I walk into a room, you walk into a room, and we can't just walk in as Sheliza and Hamza. We're thinking like, I got a beard, I'm dressed a certain way, I'm wearing a throwback Raptors hat over here. Like, what are people going to think about me? And I'm sure you ask yourselves those questions all the time. I mean, prior to your birthday, because now this is the age of Sheliza. We've entered into the age of Sheliza where just get on board or get the fuck out.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
how do we begin to combat this? Like, what can we do at an individual level to rewire our brain?
Yes. So I just want to, that quote
Please,
is interesting because I did a minor in psychology and I taught psychology. So for me, the first thing I think about is racism. Like, that's what that quote says to me. Well, racism. And then for the people who are racialized, it's like, it's stereotype threat.
What's stereotype threat?
Stereotype threat is the threat that those stereotypes, those biases, when you see them, you yourself start to believe them.
Oh, shit. Well, that's
Also,
so interesting.
also known as self-serving bias. Another word for it, self-serving bias, where you'll do things, you'll take on that.
That's what it's called.
Yeah,
okay.
so there's so many. There's like affinity bias and affirmation bias, ability bias, confirmation bias, and all of those are products of internalized racism, which I want to talk about because stereotype threat, impostor syndrome, internalized oppression, they're all connected.
They have to be, right?
Right.
They're coming from the same place, the same source.
Yes.
And the idea that there was dissent planted from a marketing perspective is making me believe that there was a nefarious intent behind all of this.
100%. And so to answer your question about combating it, I have like these 3 things I say.
Please.
My first one is awareness. Are you aware of your shortcomings? We all have biases, no matter if you are a person of color or if you're white. If you're white, cisgender male, the top of the food chain, we all have biases. So being aware of your biases, number 1. How can you be aware of them? There's the implicit association test at Harvard. There's reading you can do, talk to folks, have a, there's always like you have a critical friend. Have a critical friend. And I wouldn't say tokenize that person, make it one of your
someone
friends
who'll
of
call
color.
you out, right?
But any friend, white, black, straight, gay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who they are. Someone who's close to you that can be your critical friend to call you out.
Right. Or call you in, as I've learned.
Or call you in. Yes, I say call in or call out. And so who can tell you gently, you know what? I think you said that, but I don't think you meant that. And this is the impact it had or could have. The other thing is then education, which follows in that. So really taking opportunity to educate yourself. So again, making that a priority for you to go learn. Talk to people, but read lots of books, listen to podcasts, watch videos, go to workshops, educate yourself, because the job is your work to slow down. It's not a person of color or someone from the LGBT community or from someone who's disabled to make that job easy for you. That's the hard work, is the education piece.
I'm on board for this. So awareness, critical friend, education.
Yes, and my last one.
Yeah.
So I said awareness, education, and my last one is action.
Action.
Because it's okay to chat, have all this chatter, but what are you going to do about it? And that can be something little. It can be something small like, okay, I see this person of color. I'm assuming these things are running through my head. I'm going to stop and take a moment and not say that or not think that. And I do that all the time. It's about slowing yourself down.
Yeah. We're preaching to the choir over here. Like everyone in this room right now, and most of the listeners I'd say over here are on board with this. And it's hard work. But I feel like people who are on the outside are the ones that are shouldering this burden. Like, what is the responsibility of allies in this case?
Yes.
So if you're listening to this and you identify as somebody who has privilege, as somebody who has power, what is the responsibility that they have to help make the world a better place for everyone?
Yeah.
Move towards a more an equal world.
Right. So that word ally is such a word of contention these days. But I want to first say that an ally or an allyship is given and earned, not taken or not claimed.
Gotcha.
And what I mean by that is that you can't just say you're an ally of X community or Y community. You have to earn that trust. The other thing is that an ally can be an ally, but the contest comes when we think about ally. Is an ally really an accomplice or a critical friend or a co-conspirator? So for those allies out there, are you going to get in there and do the education and action for yourself? Or are you going to just do the talking? So let's walk the walk, not just sit there and talk in a theoretical sphere about unconscious bias or about racism or about anything. Let's do the action piece. And that's what the role of allies is. The role of allies is to be an accomplice and a co-conspirator. And that could mean anything, right? Like if one of your friends has a child that has a disability and they need your support, or they don't even need your support, they might even ask you. Maybe you ask them, how can I support you? Oh, there's a walk this weekend. I'd love you to join me. Join them.
Right.
Get in there. Get in the fight.
Yeah.
If you talked about posts and retweeting and stuff like that, maybe you're retweeting. Maybe you're engaging in dialogue, asking questions, supporting that person. silently or in person, going to their workshops, supporting their podcasts. If you are an ally and you have the power and privilege to have a connection, connecting people. I was at a leadership workshop on Saturday, and it's a women's leadership program for all women.
Right.
And one of the women who identified as white said, I'm getting all these lunches with executives, but I can't seem to land a job. I said, lucky you get those jobs with executives. People of color, especially women of color, don't get jobs.
No.
She said, really? And she said, well, what do I do about it? I said, well, you can use your power and your privilege to connect those people who aren't leading to connections for you, to connect them to other women of color.
Tap people into the organism.
Tap people in, exactly. Call people in. And so allies, look at the areas of privilege you have and use that privilege for action. Use it to be a true ally or an accomplice or a co-conspirator. Be on the front lines. So, for example, just think about teaching right now. We're in a shamble around teaching and about autism funding and special education funding. The government's gotten rid of pathway funding, funding for Indigenous youth programs. So maybe you want to take it upon yourself to, write a letter to an MP or get out there and be a co-conspirator in any aspect that you can. So that action piece, I think, is critical for allies.
Wow. You've shaken me to my core, truly. And this is why I love this podcast so much, because I have an opportunity, the privilege to sit down with people that are just so passionate and insightful and knowledgeable and are able to distill what it is that they know into clear, actionable steps. And that last piece over there is what's been missing from my equation, which is the action piece. That's the one thing that I haven't been showing up for. And I think I've been scared. I think I've looked at the world and I've said to myself, I think we're past the point of no return. And I say that because, ever since Donald Trump won, and I found myself realizing that I was in a filter bubble. I was in a big, liberal, social justice filter bubble. And I believed that him winning could have never happened in a million years. And it happened. And since then, I've made a conscious effort to engage, not engage, because I don't actually participate, but I lurk. I'm part of these really conservative, problematic Facebook groups. I'm on these subreddits where I'm seeing the vitriol and Islamophobia and just racism, like plain-faced, OG, scary, like I'm worried for my physical safety shit. And I think that there's a swath of the population that is listening to our podcast right now, or who never listened to our podcast in the first place, but if they were, they would tune out because it's like, too much work. I don't want to do this. I want my tribe to win. I want my people to win. I don't want the world to move towards a place where we're all equal. And so I've been a little cynical, but you're absolutely right. With what little privilege and power I do have, I need to use my platform to amplify, to manifest my support in the three ways that you just described.
And one thing I've been working on, you talked about sort of looking at these different posts. I think that's a good thing because when I first came back from Harvard and I had been in a bubble myself, everyone was social justice minded,
Yeah.
And
Justicey
everyone was,
too.
justicey. Everyone was in the same kind of mindset as me. Everyone had the same goals and mission. I came here and I was sad.
Yeah.
I was defeated. Like you said, we had Ford, there's Trump.
A populist movement sweeping the world right now.
Yeah, I know.
Modi
and
India.
I was so disappointed because I said, where are the people who are like-minded as me? And, and I had a conversation with a friend who is the associate director of diversity at the School of Education at Harvard. And we're good friends. We share a birthday. We're like twins. But she said, it was about teaching. And she said, if you're not going to teach the white kids, who's going to teach the white kids? And then we had a conversation. If you're not going to put yourself in spaces that are uncomfortable, then who will? So what I mean by that is, for both of us, I think it's getting to be in conversations that are uncomfortable and spending time with people who are not always like-minded, because sometimes you can just shift their mind a little bit. And I'll give you a small example.
Please.
Summertime, there was a Jays game, sweltering hot. I was off. My cousin came to see me. I saw 2 cops outside.
Okay.
I have a bias towards cops.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of mean. But these cops, I was sweating. I was wearing a skirt. They were wearing there was a woman and a man wearing pants. And there's a Dairy Queen across the street. I said to my cousin, let's go buy them ice cream. He said, you want to buy ice cream for the cops?
Cops, what's wrong with you?
I said, yeah, let's go buy it for them. So then I said to them, we walked by and I said, I'm going to get you ice cream. Do you have any allergies? And I said, what do you want? He said, you're really going to buy me ice cream? I said, yeah. He's like, or do you just want to take a picture of me and post on social media of me eating ice cream during my job? I said, no, funny. I just want to get you ice cream.
Yeah.
So we went there and we bought them 2 bottles of water and ice cream, like dilly bars, brought them to them. And he said, wow, you really bought it for me. I said, yeah. And then my cousin said, that's nice of you. I said, you know what? It was in my intention, my heart, I wanted to do that. But also, those interactions, maybe it changes someone's mind.
100%.
right? Maybe they don't think of me because I look youthful, right? Maybe they don't
Yes,
think of me
absolutely.
as a young brown woman who's just jaywalking or something, right? Maybe that interaction will make that person feel better that day.
I think so.
And that kindness can shift mindsets. And so that's why I think it's important to be in circles that are uncomfortable. It's hard. I'm working on it. And be around people who don't share the same opinions as you.
This is, you know what? You've reinstilled a confidence that I think was lacking in me, an optimism that was lacking in me, because my access to social media and the amount of time that I spend thinking about it, working in it, teaching it, and all of that, I felt like it was a lost cause, because for every one action, for every one ice cream that Sheliza buys a cop, that cop is now, I'm just going to assume they're part of conservative groups on Facebook that are just bombarding them with like, oh my God, look at what he did. More Syrian fucking refugees coming in here. They're taking our job. They're raping our women, right? And I think that that's like a stream that's so, if you're trying to do one good deed, if you're trying to create one positive interaction, you're going upstream. But you're absolutely right. It's those things that are much more impactful, because at the end of the day, what's Facebook?
Right.
It's just this digital thing. It's just text on a screen, right?
But what's going to get you out of bed, right? What's going to get you out of bed?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so it's that moment. So, I mean, I've never told anybody this story. Nobody knows that I did that. Just my cousin and I. But it's, how can you use this hope, this passion, this optimism for good, right? And of course, there's days where we feel down, but it's like that passion, that drive, that passion I have for hopefully justice, and leveling that playing field, for lack of a better word, and my love for fighting against oppression. I think that's what gets me out of bed, and that's what says, you know what? I'm going to continue being nice to that person who was not nice to me.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tighten my circle, but I'm going to share things on social media. And like my friends, aunts, and uncles will be like, oh, Sheliza, you're very active on Facebook. I see the post. You're not afraid to say what you think. And I was like, oh, auntie, you're looking at my post, but they're on my Facebook and they see.
Exactly.
And they're like, you're not afraid to speak up.
Where did you see this, auntie? You saw it because you were lurking.
Yes, and
you
I
were
have
being a gargoyle.
Former professors at York University being like, I haven't seen them in 15 years. Sheliza, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. And these are white women. They're looking at what I'm reading and they're sharing it. So I think that optimism is the key, like what you said, being true to yourself and being optimistic, because there's no other way to be.
And I don't think like being apolitical and saying, I'm not going to share my politics, I don't talk about politics, religion, I think that's a cop-out, honestly.
That's not me.
That's not me. And
I can't do that.
I think I did that for a long time, and I want to commit to you, and I want to commit to all the listeners. Like, you're going to see a marked improvement on my part to be more optimistic, to be more confident, to retweet, to amplify, to participate more in serving this higher order priority of good, of helping people. And
kudos, it's good.
No, but the thing is, we need to do this because there's strength in numbers. And right now we're being outnumbered. Our asses are being kicked across the world and just dragged through the mud. I mean, you just turn on CNN any day and you can just see all kinds of fuckery that's happening, right? Forget about CNN. Don't even turn that on because they're not showing you the real shit. Put on Fox News.
Yeah.
Go expose yourself to Breitbart. See what's happening over there, and you can see that there's a worship that's happening of this idea that the world is small and that people need to only look out for themselves, and not everyone is equal, and we're just reverting back to a time where I'm afraid that if you look like us, if you identify with any of our intersectionalities, the world's not going to be a nice place for you to be in.
And for those listeners who are afraid, because of their jobs or whatever, I know I did say one thing once on social media or on the news. It was not even bad. It was just about your bosses or something. This was like 15 years ago, and I kind of got reprimanded a little bit. But if you're afraid of doing that, don't be afraid of having rich in-person dialogue and conversations with your colleagues, right?
Absolutely.
Protect yourself, because this is still a oppressive system and structure we live in. But engage in those dialogues in whatever way you're comfortable with.
That's it. While we're on the topic of unconscious bias, let's move on to the next segment of the podcast. I had to run this by you before we started, just because there has been some feedback from some of our listeners. They've said that what we've done is we've usually created custom games for the guests.
Okay.
And then for the last 3 episodes, I got a little bit lazy and we started to do explain that Graham. And some of our listeners reached out and they're like, hey man, step it up. We want to hear custom games again. So we're back to the grind, and I had a lot of fun designing this custom game.
Right.
But it's a custom game that might make people uncomfortable. But I think that's exactly what we need to do.
Yes. If you listen to, if you've read Courageous Conversations, experience discomfort. That is the key to that action, awareness, and education piece. So I'm all for it. I'm ready.
Let's go. This game is called Casual Racism Translator.
Awesome.
Where you primarily are going to be a translator of phrases that are thrown around, and I'm going to act as an ignorant coworker, and I'm going to say some problematic phrases that I think are just, hey, This is just how we speak. These are colloquialisms. These are Canadian phrases. These are North American phrases. But I want you to actually interpret what it is that I'm really saying.
Decode it. For Canada.
And you know what? If you're listening to this and you've said these phrases, well, now understand, listeners, that this is what you actually said. And if you know people who have said this to you, if you've heard this at your workplace, now you know actually what's really being said. So the first phrase, Sheliza, and thank you for playing this game. There's about 10 phrases. Perfect. Let's rock it. Phrase number 1. Why does everything have to be about race?
Interesting one. That is about guilt. So that means that I am too uncomfortable to consider your racial identity, but secretly I have my own biases.
Yep. Number 2. I don't really see color.
I'm trying to be progressive and treat everyone equally, but I know that white men still get it better.
Number 3. I'm just going to pick a race at random over here.
Sure.
I grew up around brown people.
I can't be racist because I know some brown people, but really, I'm just trying to show you that I am only a little bit racist, but not towards you. You're my friend. That's a long one.
There you go.
Sorry.
I dated a black person.
Oh, I hate that one. I love black men, so that must mean I'm not racist, and I hope you'll believe me.
That's it. Iggy Azalea, if you're listening to this, it's for you, man. Number 5. I don't want to sound racist, but...
I mean to sound racist, so...
Sheliza, you're on fire. You're so quick with these, man. Number 6. Not all white people, though.
I feel really guilty.
Number 7. Why must you always be the victim?
I don't have the energy to change, and I'm frankly just lazy.
Where are you really from, though?
I think white people made this country, so I want to know, why are you here?
Sheliza, I'm just going to throw 2 curveballs at you over here.
Okay.
I'm going to move away from like casual racism and just go into blatant racism, if you don't mind.
Let's see if I can take it.
Go back to your country.
I'm losing power.
Oh man, you're so good at this. And listeners, Sheliza did not see these. She's
part of my
doing this
experience.
on the fly here. You know what? Let's do this one. Make America great again.
I'm scared of all the people of color. They're going to take over.
Wow, Sheliza Jamal, on your feet so quick. You just rock that.
Thanks. I try. It's my lived experience. I hear this shit every day.
It's terrifying, right? And so, you know what? Guilty as charged. I think there were times in my life where I might have said something like this. I think I once, maybe more than once in my life, I probably said something like, I don't see color. Or I remember like early on in my life, it's like, yeah, I grew up around X race, a person with X identity, and therefore I get a pass, right? That's not the case, right? And so this goes back to your initial point about awareness, around education, around action. Like, you need to do the hard work. Listeners, myself, everyone in the community needs to do the hard work of understanding that your words have power and that you speak things into power, and that your words have gravity and your thoughts become things. And so you have to do the hard work. There's no escaping it.
Yeah.
What version of the world do you want to be in? If you want to be in a better world, well, let's do the work.
What version of the world would I be in?
Yeah.
So that statement, colorblindness, really sticks out to me. And it's a world where the importance of seeing color is that it's important to see individuals for their own lived experiences and social identities and accept them. And so a world I would like to live in, if you've seen that graphic, listeners, that has the equality, equity, liberation, and some of it has reality and justice. It's 3 individuals watching a baseball game on different crates.
On different crates, yeah.
Yeah.
Good picture.
My world is a world where we're all watching the Raptors game.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay for it. We're all watching. There's no fence. There's nothing there. But there are things in place to make sure, so this is the equity piece, there's things in place to make sure that we can see the game in the same way. And my world would exist where I see women not cutting each other down, but supporting each other, more men and women of color in leadership roles, more men and women of color who are not benefiting from anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism, because I see that within our communities.
Terrifying.
That we as as a woman of color, as a South Asian woman, I still am benefiting from anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism. So I would like to see a world where we are really together as people of color, accomplices, co-conspirators to find true justice, where then you can say that all people are the same. That's equality. But I don't know if we'll have that in my lifetime, or in anyone's lifetime at this point. But that is my ideal world, where we are all, you have a TV show about a bunch of high schoolers, and they're all different race, ability, sexual orientation, or expression, and they're not tokenized, right?
Absolutely.
Where individuals are not tokenized, where individuals are really recognized for their strengths, and where people of color don't have to work 10 times as hard, where we don't have 5% of Indigenous folks represent Canada and 27% of them are in jail.
Jesus.
Where we don't have that happening.
Right.
And we're really celebrating each other.
Amen.
And not being so capitalist in our thinking, where we cut each other down.
Absolutely.
But as society, as humankind, we bring each other up.
And you know what? You couldn't have said it better. Everything you've said right now is just really making me think about the people in my life right now who, are enthralled by Jordan Peterson and similar thought leaders who are preaching this idea that equity is a bad thing, right? Equality of outcome is terrible, and that's going to take us back to, Soviet Russia, and we've already seen this play out with Nazi Germany and whatnot. And I'm like, man, hold on. Let's just slow our horses over here, because you have to understand the power that you have, and by giving these platitudes and by giving these buzzwords and these sound bites to people who are not contending critically with the issues in the way that you are, they get drunk off that, and that becomes 100%. Their MO, and then they use that as an excuse to not do the work.
Right.
And again, it comes back to what version of the world do you want to live in? And if you just do the arithmetic and you go down the logical progression of what world you're going to live in, if you choose to do the work or choose not to do the work, it really depends on who you are. And you're seeing the ripple effect. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts that I listen to, Joe Rogan included, where you can see him echo those sentiments. And it's problematic because you have the biggest podcast in the world right now, and you have a lot of impressionable young men listening to you who are now just parroting exactly those thoughts.
Right. And that's the positionality, right? What's their positionality? What's their power and privilege position that they're coming from to spread these messages?
Right.
Because they've never had the lived experience of oppression.
That's it.
And systemic inequality, right? And so that's why for me it's the education piece. A perfect world, everyone would be critical thinkers and really educating themselves. I'm just thinking of more and more things I want to say, but that's the problem, right? We see this with voting, we see this with policies, because people are not educated. They'll just listen to a spearhead. And that's where social media can be powerful.
Yep.
So Hamza, maybe you can be the next social media guru here, thinking about our digital footprint matters. And so how can we shift that? Because people are looking for this quick, efficient bites of knowledge, just like unconscious bias, right?
That's it.
So how can we give quick, fast, efficient bits of information? Because people are doing that when they vote, when they make decisions. They're looking for the easy way out.
That's a challenge, and that's why I love the podcast format, which is why I got really jazzed about this, is because people who are listening to us, thank you so much for tuning in. It's like we're hanging out with you. You could be at work right now, you could be studying, you could be driving.
That's my favorite thing.
But I feel like all of us are sitting together in a room right now, and we're having this conversation, and you can hear us. And, one day I hope that if, as a listener of the podcast, we get to interact with you as well. But you're probably yelling things back at us, and you're nodding your head, and you're disagreeing, but whatever. We're having that dialogue right now. We're having the dialogue in a way that's so 2019 and even beyond that as well. Sheliza, I'm in just awe of your ability to show up and be on your A game, and you're fasting today too, which is wild. You're so sharp. I want to really unpack and understand and unravel the systems that go into building you. Let's talk about your productivity systems.
Sure.
How is it that you organize your time, your energy, your attention? How do you optimize it? Because I know that I want to download some of that and bring it into my own life, and I know the listeners want to do the same as well.
Thank you.
Let's start with time. So you have committed to higher education.
Yes.
You recently wrapped up your master's program,
Yes,
right?
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
I think a doctorate is in the cards as
yes,
well.
I'm starting in September. I'm going to be working full-time and doing my PhD in social justice education at OISE. So I'm nervous to be working and going to school part-time, but we'll see how it goes.
I'm shuddering because those are 2 full-time jobs. How are you going to balance that? And when I ask you that, I'm really asking about how you balance it in the first place. Because when you were doing your master's, you were also working full-time.
Yes.
You were growing your entrepreneurial venture.
Yes.
You're in a long-term, committed, healthy relationship. You're managing your fitness. You're juggling so many things. Talk to me about your relationship with time. How do you organize and structure your time?
Sure. So I've been often called the Energizer Bunny, and
Keep on going and going
I'm
and going.
always
Keep
working
going, yeah.
on managing my time. I think I don't sleep enough. I would like to sleep more, but that's one of the ways I manage my time. I get my sustainability through people. So I'm a major extrovert, like whatever that on that scale. I forgot
MBTI.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like the top extrovert, and so
You talk to us and you get energy.
Yes,
Yeah.
I get energy from people.
Love it,
So
man.
like. That's not me, is it? Oh,
it's all
I
good.
get energy from people.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing. So I get recharged from being around people.
Right.
Whether that's from doing a workshop for students or for teachers or whoever it might be, I get life. Like really, I
good.
get life. So that's one thing.
Very cool.
To manage my time, I really love using the calendar function in my cell phone, the reminders
Right.
with
Use
Siri.
Google Calendar.
So I use Google Calendar, yep.
Nice.
And then I also, thinking about universal design and accessibility, I use my Siri. I'm like, hey Siri,
Yeah.
set this reminder for me, set this timer.
Does Siri actually listen to you? Because I feel like
She
when we talk
does.
about unconscious bias,
I was saying it softly because she might listen.
programmed bias is a real thing.
Yes.
Where the people who are programming AI, I'm really worried about that because
100%.
AI, Siri and I have the worst relationship. I have said things to Siri that I would not say to anyone.
Right.
Like I have cursed at Siri so many
I know
times.
Siri is.
The
we
fuck!
call
I just
her-
asked you for the Raptor
We
score,
call her
man.
Shitty Bye.
The
Shitty Bye. But so speaking of that, I got my dad at Google Home,
Oh,
and he's
man.
like, she doesn't understand my damn accent because
Yeah,
he says
man.
Google, like he says a little bit of accent, like he's got like an East African, like a colonial. He's got like East African Indian accent, so it's like a British Indian accent.
Could you do it for us?
I don't know. He says Google, right? And then he like, this stupid girl doesn't understand my voice. Like it's garbage. Throw it away. And I went home last year for Christmas, and I was like, "Are you using it?" He's like, "I don't use it. Just return it. Waste of money." So he was getting frustrated that she didn't understand him, and it made me sad because I was
Yeah.
like, "It's your accent."
Your life could be so much better
I know.
if you did.
But yeah, so I use
Voice control.
voice
technology.
control. I use my calendar. I use my friends. I'm old school.
Hey.
If you look in my bag or you look on my papers, I like writing down lists.
Hey, you
like, I
have
a
more
list
words
in
on
my
that
bag.
paper than I wrote.
I
down
have
there.
a list in my bag of everything I have to do. So this is my mind too. I am not a one track. I go everywhere. My mind, like my drama teacher in grade 12 was like, you have like multiple tracks going on in your brain. And so my mind is thinking about 100 things at one time.
Sure.
I'm already thinking about like what I could have said differently for our game, but that's okay.
You've been rocking that.
I know.
I'm
I'm like thinking.
You hit that game out of the
I'm
park.
always
Don't worry
thinking.
about that.
So to keep me on track, sometimes I'll say, okay, Sheliza, take a deep breath and write these things down because sometimes I do forget things.
Right.
And then I also prioritize. Okay, so what's due when?
Mm-hmm.
I also am a big sucker for procrastination. What I mean by that is I strive with stress and deadlines.
Yep.
I do really well with doing things last minute or not to say that I haven't prepped for it, but like I can think about a paper, stew on a paper, write notes to write an essay, but then like 5 days before or 2 nights before, I can hammer it out.
It's a Kawhi Leonard effect, right? Like he said that
thank you.
82
Yeah.
games, there's just practice, there's just warm up, and he's
Exactly.
activated in the playoffs. I have a buddy named
Kawhi and I,
Faizan.
see?
Kawhi and I, but also Faiz. Shout out to Faiz, right? This guy I went to school with, one of my best friends. I sat in a class with him one time, and he was on Reddit, or I think this was even before Reddit. He's probably on like WorldStar or something the whole time. And I'm like, yo, man, like you never take notes in class, like you never study. And he's like, I need to get bored first. He's like, when I'm bored, when I feel like that the intensity of the deadline, that's when I shift into gear.
Yes, I hate being bored. That's for me. I have to be doing something like all the time.
Right.
Like I'm going to go home tonight, work
provoke
on something.
that, yeah.
Like I have something to work on for a leadership and mentoring program I'm facilitating tomorrow. And it's like, I like to plan in my head ahead of time, write the note, and then just go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I work. So I'm an actor too. So I write monologues or plays, and sometimes I write the best stuff when I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's right here. And I just write.
You're a true multi-potentialite. You're doing so much. I love it. Let's talk about energy now, because especially in the realm of the work that you're doing with equity, diversity, inclusion, unconscious bias, you're dealing with really heavy subject matter. And I know, because my sister's a registered nurse, like sometimes I've seen her come home and just be exhausted. Like you could see, like today she dealt with some really difficult shit.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your energy? Because you're high energy. Every time I've met you, every time I've seen you, like you've just been, again, exuding confidence and happiness and radiance. But I imagine that that's an active process of trying to subdue the heavy shit that you encounter.
Yeah, I think my body is shutting down a little bit today because I had a nap for the first time in 10 years today before I
What?
came here.
Magic.
I don't really nap. But what gives me, I think, energy is, so I do go to the gym like 3-4 times a week. I haven't gone in a while, but I do go to yoga.
Nice.
And I go to mosque at least once a week.
Right.
And that is like my time where honestly, like I go and I just come out a new person. Like I just feel so good just being in that spiritual space. And also, I think reading, reading, I have 3 books on the go right now. I'm not through any of them, but like reading, and having tea or coffee, chai, that also like settles me down.
You've got your rituals, yeah?
Yeah. Sometimes watching like a really, I hate to say it, like a dirty show on Netflix. And what I mean by dirty, oh my gosh. So on Saturday night, it was like Dynasty, the remake of Dynasty on Netflix. It's trashy garbage TV.
I thought you meant like dirty. I mean like just
like
junk food
Dynasty.
TV. Okay,
yeah, like horrible, mindless TV.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because I'm always watching
Keeping up with the
documentaries.
Kardashians, yeah.
Oh, I don't watch them.
Okay.
That's too dirty. That's too dirty.
That's too dirty.
That's too dirty. But like Dynasty or because usually I'm watching documentaries or like things about missing people.
Yeah,
or,
very critical, heavy things.
Things. My friend was over last week. He wanted to watch Stranger Things. And I was like, that's scary. It got me really stressed out. I was like, I can't watch this. Yeah. But Dynasty, that shameless TV.
Low engagement, low cognitive capacity.
But I also really love watching the news. I know that's weird. I'm an old lady like that. Like, I love watching the news or even Trevor Noah to get the recap of the day and like, okay, this is my routine. So, like, I don't have cable at the moment, but sometimes my satellite picks it up. So news is something I love to look at before I go to bed, like to look at or to watch on TV.
And speaking about like before going to bed, let's switch to attention and talk about that. The last piece of the performance point segment. Do you check your phone before you go to bed?
Yes, I'm
working on this.
You got that bad habit. I'm working Don't do it, my friend. I'm a work in progress. So I always say during Ramadan or New Year's or my birthday, my New Year's birthday and Ramadan resolutions are to
your birth Ramadan, yeah.
Stop looking at my phone or TV 1 hour before I go to bed so that I can get the melatonin working.
That's it.
Melanin?
Yeah, no, melatonin.
I was right the first time, right? Okay.
Melanin is totally different.
Melanin's my skin. Melatonin. Get the melatonin like working, get that third eye going. So that's my goal, but I don't always do it. I usually, speak to my boyfriend first thing and last thing at night. So we have a good night call. Then I usually go through my calendar before I go to bed just to make sure that my brain is prepared.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes I scroll through a few things.
Guilty as charged. Even though I said don't do that, like I think 2 nights ago I was on Reddit before I fell asleep because I just watched Game of Thrones. Actually, no, that would have been last week. So last week, episode 3,
I
season
heard it was
8.
Amazing.
Not gonna say anything, but
I've never watched Game of Thrones, so I'm gonna start.
If you're talking about a high stress show, this is the worst, man. Like this will linger with you for weeks and weeks and weeks. But you're right. There's certain things, and we've explored sleep quite a bit through the podcast. There's certain rituals that if you want to hit your bed snoozing, like turning your phone off is chief among 100%. The things that you need to do.
Yeah, I have different things I try, and nothing's stuck with me yet. Like I have the Himalayan pink salt light.
Nice, yeah, clutch.
I've got a like sage diffuser.
Yeah. Creating the optimal environment for sleep,
Trying to, but I don't sleep enough, and that's my greatest weakness.
How many hours a night are you getting?
Maybe like 6.5.
But that might be optimal for you. Like
I think I need 8. I'm so tired.
Right.
Like today I was just so tired.
Yeah.
Could be the Ramadan, but also could be, I just think I've kind of hit my point, and so I have to listen to my body.
Right on.
So now I'm going to try to, cut out the late night coffees and teas because that's affecting my system too, right? Absolutely. My body's like, we're awake. And I'm trying, and I always try, and I always get back to it. Like I said, discipline of stopping work at like 10:30 so that I can get to bed by 11 or whatever. My goal is always 11 o'clock. It doesn't always happen.
Yeah, you know what? For what it's worth, though, you're in the building phase right now. And we're all in the building phase, but you especially are applying yourself with such vigor to scale your business, to scale your enterprises to a level where it'll be self-sustaining at some point. And I understand that while that's happening, and I've been an entrepreneur myself, like you have to give up more time and more energy and more attention than the average person.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress. I'm not perfect, and I'm trying and trying new things that stick. And maybe some things just aren't working for me. So maybe I just have to make my day so that I have a nap or something during the day. You'll figure it out.
You'll find your flow. It'll come to you.
It.
But like we talked about social media, I think it was either just before we went on air or certainly after. And I know we've talked about it quite a bit, but let's talk specifically and just end this segment by understanding your relationship with social, because it's a necessary evil in your line of work. As a public speaker, as a workshop facilitator, as a personal brand, you have to amplify. You have to tell the story of what Sheliza is doing. Otherwise, you do a workshop, nobody knows about it. Exactly. But in our line of work, it's a marketing tool.
Yes.
But at the same time, we are also aware that it can be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with social media? How do you balance like being professional and then putting your phone away and making sure that it doesn't manage you?
Yeah. No, I love social media. I'm addicted. I love the pictures and looking at everyone's life and
hijacks that limbic system.
Like I have friends all over the world, so I love to see what they're up to.
Of course,
So I guess with social, in terms of all social, like LinkedIn, I've really learned how to be professional LinkedIn. So for example, I was featured on World Partnership Walk post, and I'll share that with you. So I put that on LinkedIn. It was like, hey, donate, and this is what I'm up to. So I put like all the professional stuff on LinkedIn. I'll try to post on LinkedIn at least once a week because I've seen that it's gotten me clients. It's also increases my engagement, and I get more audience that way.
Totally.
With Instagram and social, I think that I try to post a couple days a week if I can.
Right.
But I'm in the middle of dealing with transitioning from my personal account to like a coaching account.
Nice.
Because I think that I want some things just to be private, social.
Of course.
And I want people who don't know me to be on my coaching website.
Right.
Or my coaching, Instagram. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the midst of that, thinking about good name, thinking about branding for that, because I want to keep some things personal.
Absolutely,
I'm at that stage where I want to keep
sense.
things personal. And so for me, I think managing my time on social media is being really cognizant of putting it away at nighttime, right? So I think about you can get like kinks in your neck, or you can get, you're ruining your retina, or my uncle from Mombasa will send me these messages on WhatsApp about these things. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta put my phone away. Those random forwards that your aunties and uncles will send you.
Those chain WhatsApp.
Yes.
WhatsApps are the new chain emails, man.
I hate those.
All the worst,
I
man.
hate WhatsApp. So I put my phone on silent every night. Sometimes I use, I'm an iPhone user, so I use like that sleep trend.
Yeah.
But that's how I manage it. And Instagram has the amazing share facility, so I just share to Facebook. Twitter is a big thing for educators. And it's a big thing to get things out there, especially in terms of my world, and it's only 140 characters. So I would say I'm not obsessed with it. I used to have a bit of a regiment, but now I'm just kind of like free-flowing, like when I feel something. So like for Ramadan, I made a tweet, and I did an Instagram story, and that's like what I wanted to do.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I manage it. So I'm working on trying and testing things that work well, and seeing where it goes.
That's good. That's a good approach. And I think that everyone, especially the listeners who are also entrepreneurs who are thinking about striking a healthy balance, there's no one right way to do this. There's things that definitely hurt you. There's things that definitely win, but everyone's got to find the system that works for them. Congratulations. That's I'm very proud, very impressed, very much in awe of all that's been happening over here.
Appreciate that.
Let's close this out of the rapid fire round, shall we?
Yes,
so these are just 10 questions for Sheliza Jamal. We're going to ask them. You, based on what you did with the Halo Skull segment, you already know the drill over here. Whatever comes to mind, just say it. All right. I'm going to modify the first one because you mentioned that there are 3 books on the go.
Okay.
What are 3 books that have changed your life?
Ooh, changed my life. Difficult Conversations, Adaptive Leadership, and I'm reading, which has really changed my life, the 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, and more.
Could you give us authors for that so we can put it in the show notes?
Sure. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, so 21 Things is by Bob Joseph from Vancouver.
Okay.
Difficult Conversations is a Harvard book. I don't know the authors right now. Adaptive Leadership, Ron Heifetz.
Way to go. Question number 2. York, U of T, or Harvard? Which institution has the best student experience?
I'm going to say Harvard.
No love for U of T?
You know what? I haven't gone to U of T yet. I'm starting in September, so they'll have to.
What am I saying?
They'll have to earn me. I'm starting there, but you know what? Yeah.
Sorry, I got them confused. I thought. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
You're right. I hope U of T comes through for you.
Yes, I hope so. I'm hoping because I'm scared. I have lots of love for Harvard.
Number 3. What's the last movie or TV show that made you cry?
Gosh, oh my God, I'm trying to be rapid, but I was just crying from it. What did I watch? Was it Little? I guess Little. I watched Little on IPTV, and it was just about, imposter syndrome, right? And thinking about fitting in.
Tear came out?
Yeah, tear came out.
What is your weirdest pre-speech ritual? You're about to go on stage. You have a talk that day. What's one weird thing that you do?
Weird thing. I'd say, okay, I'm not rapiding right now. I think affirmation, it's not really that weird. I just say, I can do this, or, I often kiss my lips together, smush my lips together. And sometimes I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, do my power pose. Yeah, you got this. Sometimes that's what
power
it is.
Pose. I got a power pose too.
Yeah.
Amazing. This is a dual question. So what do you love the most about your partner, and what do you think your partner loves the most about you?
I love that he is very kind and compassionate, and I know that he loves that I put others before me.
Amazing. Who are 3 of your role models?
So Tracy Jones, who's the Associate Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. She's one of my role models. Professor there as well, Karen Mapp, who is a professor of social entrepreneurship and leadership. And another role model is my mom.
Shout out to all of them.
Jamal.
Yasmin Jamal. Shout out to Yasmin Jamal. Are you still teaching as a secondary arts instructor?
Yeah, so I'm actually a learning coach, so I teach teachers.
You teach teachers. What do you love the most about teaching?
The look or smile in the student's eye. So students have this look when you enter the classroom, even if I'm working with the teacher, and their eyes smile, and that is what I love.
The smiles. I love it.
Yeah, the smiles.
If you could star in any Broadway show, past or present, what would you choose?
So, everyone. Well, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, everyone. I want to be in everyone. Because of my colonized education, I'm going to say Juliet.
Okay.
I always dreamed of Juliet. I was Juliet a few times in BC, but you know.
Rocket. What song did you absolutely need to hear on your birthday? DJ, play this, please.
Boasty.
Boasty? Who's that?
Yeah, Wiley featuring Idris Elba.
Damn, I'm so
And
old.
Stefflon Don and Sean.
Wait, did you say
Paul.
Idris Elba made a song?
Oh my God, he's amazing. I'm going to play it for you after this.
Okay, done.
You know, it's a West African thing. Boasty.
Is he actually good?
Boasty, yeah.
Damn, shout out to Idris, man.
Boasty.
Done. Last question, Toronto or Boston, which basketball team are you rooting for?
100% Raptors.
I don't know, you said Harvard.
Come on, 100% Raptors.
Okay, and Raptors in 6 or 7?
We were having this conversation last night. I think in 7.
In 7, yeah. It's going to be a bit of a drag, but
yeah.
believe you got to ride or die with this team.
We gotta ride or die.
Ride or
yeah.
die with this team. This is it.
6 over everything.
The amount of haters after game 3, the amount of people who were like, it's done, nuke the team, Nick Nurse the worst.
Yeah.
I'm like, where?
Because we're good.
So frustrating.
You know
man.
what? Haters gotta hate.
Haters
but
gotta hate,
you know
man.
what? We keep going. We
Boom.
showed that yesterday.
We showed that today. Keep going. Sheliza Jamal, you rock this. This was one of my favorite episodes of all
thank
time.
you.
Thank you. This was
Thank
an
you so
absolute
much.
pleasure. We got to have you back on here and let's chat afterwards
My pleasure.
about
I'd love to.
all of the things. But before we get off, where can people follow your adventures online?
Sure. So at Sheliza Jamal, that's SHELIZA JAMAL. That's the same for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everything in the sun.
Perfect. And what kind of upcoming projects or events are coming down the pipeline?
So
Let's
I'm
plug
working.
it all in.
Yeah, I'm working with an arts organization in Ontario for a theater residency that's coming up. Working on a one-woman show, and I got some workshops on the go. So check me out. Check my website out.
Is your one-woman show going to be advertised on your website?
It will be. Yeah, it's a work in progress. It's
Oh,
called
boy.
Confessions from a Bathroom Stall.
Amazing.
Yeah.
When do you have a rough date?
I don't. I'm thinking October. Right now, we're working with Artscape to think about space and programming.
That's so
Yeah.
exciting. There's actually a really amazing venue that I saw in North York
Okay.
recently, a theater that you should check out
I will
afterwards.
check it out. I'm so downtown centric. I'm biased to downtown,
Hey,
so I should check out the
one
North York.
one train north.
One train.
And you know, one question that I realized that we didn't ask you in the
Sure.
rapid fire, and I want to hear from you because you've given us so many gems in this
Okay.
podcast. You've just been dropping bar after bar,
Thank
and
you.
know, I wish I was taking notes over here. I got to figure out a system where, obviously I'm gonna have the transcript of
Yeah.
this and whatnot, and we'll have show notes and we'll chop
Yeah.
it up after the fact. But what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received? You've given us so much, but what is the best advice that you have ever received?
I think the best advice I've ever received is to believe in myself, be authentic to who I am, and everything will fall into place, and to never waver from who I am,
Love
regardless of what anyone says.
Sheliza Jamal, absolute pleasure. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Ideas into Action family, thank you so much for tuning in. This was another week, another amazing episode, and we will see you all next week for episode 21. We're almost at the end of the season. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We're going to close this out strong. See ya.